Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we're going to be talking about my favorite fall palettes. I love this time of year, so I'm like very excited about this video. I just did another video and I had the same shirt on. Like I was going to change my shirt just to make it, you know, different, but I don't feel like it. So you might see another video shortly after this with the same shirt on. I did change out my lipstick, but you know, I just filmed back to back and I just didn't feel like changing my shirt. So but anyway, for today, I am going to share with y'all my favorite palettes for fall. So you guys know that I love cool tone eyeshadows. I can wear cool tones pretty much any time of year and be happy. But when I think about fall, the first thing that I think about, I forgot to do an intro. Let me go back. If you're here for the first time, welcome. My name is SonyaNicole. Thank you so much for stopping by, and please make sure you subscribe while you're here today and let me know in the comments when you do subscribe, because I love to meet y'all and I definitely want to say thank you for subscribing. And of course, for those of you who are returning to the channel, welcome back. Thank you so much for coming back and thank you for your continued support. Okay, now let's get into the video. Okay, so like I was saying, I love cool tone shadows. Those are my favorites and I can wear them pretty much all year round because that's what I like to wear. But when I think about fall, especially in terms of makeup, the first like color scheme that comes to mind is like berry tones. So I do have quite a few palettes here that we're going to talk about that are like the berry, kind of like the reddish tone colors. But I also think about maybe like rustic colors, like colors that make you think about like the fall foliage and whatnot. So I feel like I have a couple of palettes in here that have like a mix of like rich tones, but also maybe like muted and more like rustic tones. But either way, they kind of remind me of like the leaves changing color kind of sort of. So I actually have 10 palettes that I'm going to share with y'all, but let's talk about all of the berry tone ones first because I feel like I have quite a few of those. So let's start off with the one that I have on my eyes today. So this is the Dose of Colors Blushing Berries palette. So that's what this one looks like. The reason I like this one so much is because I prefer like smaller palettes. Even though I do have some palettes that have like maybe 20 plus shadows in them, I like these types of small palettes better because I think that they're just easier to use. Even if you think that you're like really versed. Is it raining? It's pouring down outside. Even if you think that you're like really versed with eyeshadow, these are really good if you want to do something kind of different, maybe something a bit more colorful, not like an everyday like a neutral tone look, but something that you want to just throw on your eyes really quickly and you don't really have to put too much thought into like putting some colors together on your eyes. That's why I like this. And of course, the reason I like it for fall is because of the color story. I think that you can go kind of like more everyday with this one, and you can use like these shades over here, and then of course you can go down here if you wanted to do something deeper. So again, this is what I have on my eyes today, and I have every color. Do I have the black? No, I didn't put the black on my lower lash line, so I have all of the shades in here except for that black one, and then I have my highlighter, a shimmery highlighter in my inner corner. But this is definitely one of my favorite fall tone palettes because it's just like the perfect like, you know, berry color story. So speaking of small palettes, this kind of reminds me of the Dose of Colors one. This is one of the e.l.f. bite-sized palettes, and this one is called Berry Bad. So that's what this one looks like here. And these are even more so like easier to use. I don't know why I'm going like this, but these are even more so easier to use if you want something that's like really simple. You don't really have to think about what you're doing, and you can still do something more like every day with like this lighter shade here, and then even this deeper shade if you have a deeper skin tone. And then the two in the middle, these are like really good shimmery shades. I'm going to swatch these for y'all really quickly because I want y'all to see. Now we know that swatches, they don't really give us like a true representation of what an eyeshadow is going to look like on our eyes because we apply more pressure when we swatch them. But I wanted to swatch these because these are like really pigmented eyeshadows. They don't have a whole lot of fallout. They're nice and creamy. They just look really nice on the eyes, and these palettes are only $3. So again, this one is in the shade Berry Bad. I think I have 5 of these. Yeah, I have 5 of these, but this is definitely the one that I think about when I think about fall because again, it has like that berry tone color story to it. So next up we have the Urban Decay Naked Cherry palette, and even though it's called Naked Cherry, I mean, yes, it's cherry themed, but I think you can consider this like berry themed also. So this is one of my favorite palettes, and actually this is the only naked palette that I own. And when I tried this for the first time, this is the one that made me think about possibly like venturing out, getting some more naked palettes, because I just love the way that this blends out. Like all of the shades are really pigmented. You can do, even though it looks like a very monochromatic palette, you can do a whole lot with this, because again, you have some of these lighter shades down here, some of the deeper ones, and I think they give you like a really nice mix of shimmers and mattes, because you have like some of your deepest shimmers is this down here, but you also have like some of the lighter shimmers up here. So it looks like you might not be able to do a whole lot with this one, but you really can. And again, just like with the other two, this really reminds me of fall, because it speaks to like that whole berry theme. But in addition to that, it's a really good performing palette. So that's why I had to add this one to the list. And the last one that I have, this is kind of sort of like berry themed. This is the Fenty Beauty, one of the snap shadows, and this is called Wine. So this is snap shadow number 9. So I guess what makes me think about berries is this like shimmery shade in the middle. What I really like about this is, again, this is a really small palette, so it's easy to like just pick up and use, but for it to be so small, it does have a whole lot of versatility to it. Like you can add a little pop of color, like something outside of like that whole like berry tone because of this purple shade in here, or you could even stick with the shades on the outer corners and just do like an everyday, like more of like a neutral look to it. So this definitely is not as like berry themed as the other ones that we just talked about, but I still feel like this one is very fall tone, because it has like that deep rich purple in it. And then this one here, like I said, this is what really makes me feel like fall when I think about this palette. Okay, so this next palette, this is an example of one that has like, to me, like really rich fall tones to it, but I don't think this was meant to be like a fall palette. This is the Jackie Aina Anastasia Beverly Hills palette. I think that this actually came out in the summertime. I can't remember, but I love the color story of this palette, and I think like I don't have like a super huge extensive palette collection, but I feel like out of all of the ones that I have, this is like one of the most aesthetically pleasing palettes that I have ever come across. Like all of the shades go so well with one another. Like I think that she did a really good job taking her time to pick out the different shades in this palette. So this purple shade here, this one, this deep, like this is like a mix of like pink and purple, maybe like a burgundy, like a muted burgundy type color. But this brown shade here, these like rich tones, these are the types of shades that I think about when I think about fall, because I guess they're kind of like the opposite of like pastel colors that you would typically think about in the spring. So this is another example, like the Urban Decay Naked Cherry palette, how it's a bit more monochromatic, but you can still do a lot with it. This one is an example of like a whole bunch of different options, but like I said, all of the colors go so well with the other colors in the palette. But I think because the colors are so rich in here, that's what makes me think about like rich, like fall tones. Some of these shades make me think about like the leaves turning color. There's a few shades in here that I don't really care for because they're a bit more golden than my personal taste, but those gold tones really help like make me think of fall when we think of like the fall foliage and whatnot. So yeah, this is like one of my favorite palettes ever, even though I don't use it too much, but I really like this. Next up, this is pretty new to me. This is the Ulta Blushing Blooms palette. And for those of you who are into cool tones like me, this is not a full like cool tone palette, but to me it kind of, when I look at it, I think of cool tones. But this is like an example of kind of like muted, like more rustic colors that remind me of fall. One of my favorite colors is pink, so when I think about eyeshadow, one of the first things I think about is pink. Actually, now that I say that, I don't know like how often I wear pink eyeshadow, but it is one of my favorite eyeshadow colors. But those pinks, those browns, they're like more rustic, like a more muted type color story going on here. So that's why I think about fall when I think about this one. I will say with this palette. The regular price of this is $20, and I feel like that is a bit pricey for this. I got it on sale for 50% off. It is a good performing palette. Like, I like the way, I didn't use all of the colors in here yet, but the ones that I have used, I like the way that they perform. But I feel like with the size of it, and it's an Ulta brand, like I just feel like $20 is a bit up there for this, but I do really like the color story for this one. Okay, so I really want to know what y'all think about this next palette in the comments, because this like screams fall to me for some reason. But I really, well, let me just show y'all. This is the NYX Ignite palette, and this is what the colors look like. Let me show y'all like this. This is what the colors look like. This to me is like the perfect example of like rustic fall. Let me know if y'all agree with that. Like, I think I got this palette in the fall, which is why I was so excited about it. I used to use this like crazy actually, and you know, I just moved on to other things, but I think that this is just like a perfect example of like a fall color story. Like, it's not like your typical colors that you think about when you think of fall foliage, so I can't really put my finger on exactly why this screams fall to me, but I just think this is like the perfect fall tone palette. Like, they do have another one, it's called, I forget the name of it, but I'll try to put a picture on the screen. It has like more greens and more golds in it, and I think it has like some browns. So that other one definitely reminds you more of like fall foliage, but I don't know what it is about this color story. Like, I remember when I saw this in the store in Ulta, and it took me away. Like, I just love the color story of this, and to me it's just like perfect for fall. I don't know. Let me know what y'all think. I really like this though. Let me know. Okay, this next palette, so like I said earlier, I love cool tones. Those are my favorite types of colors for eyeshadow, and I usually put shimmers on my lids. So today I have on mattes. I just have like a shimmer like in my inner corner, but I usually do like cooler tones and shimmery shades. But one of my favorite palettes ever, not just for fall but like ever, is actually an all matte warm toned palette. But this is like a really perfect palette for fall. This is the Too Faced Just Peachy Mattes palette, and for those of you who have never tried a Too Faced palette before, you really need to try it, because their palettes, well, I feel like their holiday collection palettes, like, to me the formula might be a little bit different, but typically Too Faced makes like really good performing palettes, and this is no exception. And I like this because you can again do a whole lot of stuff with this, but the color story is just really cohesive. So because we have like those peachy shades, some like cranberry type shades in there, and some deeper shades, those are the shades that really scream fall to me. But you could also use this for summer. As a matter of fact, I feel like this came out in the summertime, but like you could use these lighter shades over here for like a summer or springtime look. I mean, we all know that you could put on whatever you want at any time of the year, but to me these colors are more of like your kind of like your rustic peachy tones, and I think rustic is like one of those words that I think about when I think of fall tones. This isn't something that I would typically go for, but this is a really nice eyeshadow palette, and I think like the color story, I think it's perfect for this time of year. Next up we have the Violet Voss HG Pro palette. So again, this isn't typically like the colors that I would go for. This palette has like a lot of neutrals in it, but you have like a few of like those cranberry, like wine type shades. But I think the reason this reminds me of fall is because of a lot of the browns in this shade, in this palette. I feel like if you just took like this half of the palette, first of all, I would like this palette a lot better if it was just this half of it, but these are the shades down here that really remind me of fall, because it's like all of those like different those different shades of brown in there, and like again you have like some of those like berry tones, and like you even have some tones in here that have a little bit of like a pinkish tone to it. So again, I think of like rustic, I think of just like fall leaves changing colors when I think about this one. This is another palette that has like really good performing shadows in it. They blend out really well, they're really pigmented. The shimmery shades in here are like really smooth. They blend out kind of similar to like these elf palettes, palettes. But yeah, I think for this one, it's more so like all of these brown shades in here that make me think about fall. And last on my list, is this my newest palette? Yeah, this is my newest palette. Yes, this is the only one that I think is like a true cool toned palette, but it still happens to remind me of fall, and I think that's why this palette like came out this time of year. This is the Natasha Denona Glam palette, and that's what this one looks like here. So just like with the Violet Voss palette, I feel like this reminds me of fall because it has like a whole bunch of different like brown tones in it, but this one is very unique out of all of the other ones that we talked about because for the most part these are all cool tones, especially those browns. So again, I know I sound like a broken record, but it just looks like a rustic type palette to me. And I like this one because it has like different pops of pink and different pops of silver in it. And those are two of my favorite colors when it comes to eyeshadow. And then you also have a couple of shades in here that have like kind of like hints of gray to it. Like these two shades up here, these two matte shades. They're not gray, but they kind of look like, you know, cool toned, like they pull kind of like ashy like, but in a good way, if that makes sense. So yeah, this is my newest palette. I've only used this palette once so far, but I really like it. The color story, like I knew as soon as I saw this, I knew I was going to put out $65 for this palette because it is really, really pretty. So I'm assuming the reason it came out like this time of year is because to me it does look like a fall tone palette. So those are all of my favorite palettes for fall. Let me know what y'all think about the palettes that I chose, and if you have a YouTube channel yourself and you choose to do this video, let me know so I can definitely watch yours. I'm really curious to know what y'all think about this Ignite palette. Let me know. Yeah, but let me know what you think about all of the palettes that I picked today. So I really hope that y'all enjoyed this video. If you did, please let me know by giving me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe before you head out today, and I hope to see y'all back here for my next video. Until then, take care. Have a good one, y'all. Bye.